It's time to see if I can beat Final Fantasy VII Remake with only starting equipment. And that means we will be playing through on the standard normal difficulty, and the weapons, armor, and materia that a character starts with cannot be changed or added to. Item use does not fall under that restriction, and weapons can still be leveled up like normal under this current rule set. That means we will not be able to customize our party with fun materia combos, we will not be able to acquire the additional weapon skills and abilities that come from mastering each weapon's independent skills, and our defense rating, well, it will be incredibly low throughout this entire run. So without further ado, thank you for joining me on this channel, and let's get into the video. And so after the intro runs, the game starts at the moment that Cloud jumps off of the train and we deal with the first few Shinra troops that are standing in our way. Now, don't worry, this run is incredibly tedious, let's get that out of the way right now, and half of the time, boring. So we will be speeding through a lot and mostly focusing on the bosses and what sections can give you a hard time, or at least the ones that gave me a hard time because I wasn't paying attention to mechanics. However, while we are in the intro, I will just go ahead and explain a few of those mechanics that we will be using constantly throughout the run, or at least after I actually made the connections in my brain, that's how they worked, and then started to use them. Namely, for Cloud, we will be staying in Punisher mode as much as we possibly can, and only using Operator mode to either quickly build up some ATB for punishes, or to maneuver around fights for better positioning. This will be the main strat used for the majority of the run, and we will cover that more in a bit. Anyways, we get through the first bombing mission in the Scorpion boss like normal. We learn about character switching when Barret joins, and we also see that Barret has the Thunder and Cure materia set as default, which is convenient. Ranged combat is also an important part of this run, as some of the fights in the later part of the game are more puzzles than slogs in this challenge, and Barret or Aerith will be the solution to those problems. So we plant the bomb, and the guard Scorpion jumps us, and we begin the fight. And it is a pretty standard fight with nothing special. Yet. Barret uses Steel Skin to soak up some damage, Cloud uses Focus Strike and Punisher mode to build up stagger, and before too long, the boss goes down just like the intro to the game normally goes. We then save our Jessie in distress, take a long stumble through the burning alleys of Midgar, and meet with the definitely not dead Griffith stand-in of the game. We buy a flower from a flower girl, and then we begin to deal with the Huntsman fight, which, oh boy. This is where we are going to talk about a very annoying mechanic throughout this run. Stun. See, in the old turn-based RPG games, stuns would last for about a turn or X amount of turns. But in 7 Remake, in action RPG, stuns work differently and are not a curable status. So the Huntsman hits us with a shock baton, and we then have to sit here unmoving for about a good 10 seconds. Stuns in Remake are the actual worst thing to deal with, because at least sleep is curable. Anyways, we beat the Huntsman and the Shinra troops, and we make it back to the Sector 7 slums to have Tifa then show us to our room. Moving right along into Chapter 2, the following day, Tifa leads us around on a leash, and we learn how to level up our weapons, and we take a couple of odd jobs in this time. Tifa joins the party, and we learn how she fists things real good. But actually, Tifa is probably the most important part of this run, and I didn't make that connection until way later in the run. So you get the spoilers now. See, Tifa builds a ton of stagger damage and can keep increasing the stagger percent after the enemy is staggered. This compounds into being able to deal massive damage as long as Tifa can keep building up stagger on something. Now, I have explained that here to get it out of the way, but I won't be making use of it in the run until I actually started to pick up on that fact about halfway through the run. Anyways, we take care of a rat problem, we save Johnny and tell him to hit the road, and then we head back to the 7th heaven to hammer out some of the deets with Barret. Whilst we're waiting around, we play some darts and get a perfect score, might I add. Then later that night, we get a call from Jesse, and the first bike minigame starts. Now, I'm not going to focus in on this one. It's practically impossible to fail this section as long as you don't just sit there and let Roche spank you raw, so we're just going to move on. We steal the access card from Jesse's house, and the first big set piece of the early game happens. At this point, Cloud needs to fend off waves of Shinra troops, dogs, and sweepers until Roche shows up and we have his boss fight. So, making effective use of counter strikes and fire spells, we deal with the mobs and get ready for the boss fight with Roche. Now, the boss fight with Roche is nothing super spectacular, but he does full heal you before it begins, so a gentleman's duel, I suppose. And we immediately start by prepping for parries, and this is the main strat for many of these kind of fights, especially with Cloud. We may take a bit of damage here, but it does give us a big strike back with the parry bonus, which usually also puts the enemy into the pressured status, allowing for more stagger buildup. So the loop is parry, combo, and focus strike when pressured, only using Braver when the enemy is staggered for some pretty big damage. And by doing this, Roche goes down pretty quickly. We then gather up the team and we escape back into the slums, paying Jesse a visit before putting Cloud to bed. And after waking up, we get thrown into the first of the Whisper fights, where you have many of these entities on screen, and once dealt with, we then move to the full Whisper fight, which is the exact same fight, except now there is one purple Whisper that you need to beat, and the way to do that is by destroying enough of the other Whispers to build up its stagger gauge, and then unloading on it. Also, you can parry the spike attack that they do, so do that for some nice meaty damage from Cloud. And after dealing with the Whispers, we level our gear up and get ready for the Sector 5 bombing mission, where, starting off, we deal with the train security before jumping out into the tunnels and fighting our way through with Cloud and Tifa until we find Barret. And getting Barret back in the party, we now have a healer again, and well, it's a good thing, too, because we start fighting gas strikes, which are extremely durable little scorpion ant things. And while running around, we break every box we can so that we can get some extra healing, MP recovery, or some spare items. Now, our first big challenge comes with a small unit of flamethrower soldiers and a few missile launcher sentries. These things are beefy, and the soldiers deal some intense damage. So, after switching to Barret and a couple of Phoenix Downs later, and we make it out and get ready for the next boss fight, the Crab Warden. So, the Crab Warden fight is actually not that bad. For full spoilers, we don't really start to have any issues in this run until after Sector 5, so keep that in mind. This fight is just a slightly modified Guard Scorpion with some adds thrown in. So, target the weak points, use Barret to heal and keep pressure on, Tifa slamming out some stagger buildup, and Cloud dishing out the heavy hits while staggered, all until the 3 phases are finished up and we move on to the light bulb section. Now, once in the light bulb area, we do a couple of things here, but this whole area is just littered with set mini encounters, so we're gonna just go pretty quickly. First, I restocked on items as much as I could. We then made our way around, turning off all of the sun lamps, and we dealt with the minor insect infestation here, while using Barret to deal with all of the out-of-range sentry turrets and a few points. And also, just to give you an idea, healing in this run primarily looks like this. Yeah, you get used to that sight. And we also grabbed all of the extra materia in the area so that we could sell it all to stay stocked up on items. And with all of that out of the way, from here we slide our way into Sector 5, the reactor area, that is, on the way passing by the Airbuster while it is still docked, and we head down, plant the bomb, and then we need to fight our way through the Airbuster sortie labs. and in doing so, using all of the keycards that we pick up to dispose of as many BB shells and AI cores as we can to lessen the struggle that will be here momentarily. From here, we play the lever minigame with Tifa, pick up all of the discarded BBs and cores, and we restock and rest, finally getting ready to confront what I was expecting to be the first wall of this run. The Airbuster. Now, the Airbuster fight starts off, and good God, this thing has a ton of HP, and packs a pretty mean punch. The Airbuster also has an attack that will lay down a stun mine, and yep, that status that I talked about earlier, yeah, it's back. Yay. So we switch to Barret for the majority of this fight so that we keep our distance and use Steel Skin to mitigate damage, and then use Tifa to build up some stagger with her stacking combo abilities. Phase 2 isn't anything to worry about, so we're just going to skip ahead to Phase 3 because that's where like the real problem starts. And Phase 3 is a bit rough since the Airbuster will just hover way too far away from the walkway for Cloud or Tifa to really do anything to it. So you guessed it. We're back with Barret for the majority of the fight. That is until it does get close enough, and then we switch to the other two into action. And after a bit, surprisingly, once the Airbuster goes down, we watch as Cloud's grapple gun fails and he tumbles down into the church. Not a whole lot of problems right now. Cloud then wakes up and we meet Aerith before immediately getting into a boss fight with Reno, and you know what? I like this fight. It's a pretty fun back and forth between the two. The main strat here is the same as Roche earlier, but Reno is much faster and stronger than the soldier. So Punisher mode, counter strikes, and when staggered, Bravers. The entire kit. Phase 2 Reno is a little different though, and we'll shoot out some electric mines that can stun Cloud, so just avoid those and this fight is over pretty quick. We then save Aerith from the Shinra troops, learn that she has a bit of a potty mouth. We find out that she has the Ice, Prayer, and Refocus materia equipped on her, fight our way through the pink porkies of the area, and monkey swing our way through the junkyard, all before meeting the kids at the Leaf House Orphanage, and then finally getting introduced to Aerith's mom.
Been up to no good?
Finally, we pick some flowers. All important parts of this run, I assure you, and before running into Reno's partner Rude, who is a bit tougher of a fight than we had in the church. So Phase 1 of Rude is pretty much the same as the Reno fight here, except we have Aerith with us now. So we counter with Cloud, and we use Aerith to heal with her prayer materia until Phase 2. Phase 2 Rude gets a little bit more tricky. Using some magic to enhance his attacks, he will use Sleep on the party also, and we then learned that Rude is a king main in Tekken when he hits us with the giant swing. So by switching off between the two and using Aerith's double magic ability, we punish Rude into the ground. All of that before heading back to Aerith's house, and we stay the night. But Elmira asks us to leave, and we need to sneak out of the house. Now, there is a weird delay in starting and stopping movement in this game, and the only reason I can think that it exists is for this segment, because it is most noticeable in this segment.
Nothing.
Anyways, moving on. Aerith then ambushes us on the way back to Sector 7, and next we play a mini-game to navigate our way through the underpass with a couple of fights on the way. Finally, we spot Tifa, and then instead we decide to head to Wall Market and the Don's Mansion,
Not so fast, buddy.
where we learn of the bridal ceremony that is currently taking place, and then we seek a way to get us in there so we can save Tifa, quote unquote. That means meeting the big three of Wall Market. So we chat with Chocobo Sam, we then pay for the luxury course from Madam M, and then consequently we get thrown into the arena for Madam M, where we fight through the first 3 matches, but then comes the bonus round, and the first actual wall of this run. Oh, we've made it to Hell House. This fight is so bad in this challenge. I'd argue just in the game in general, but it is miserable with this setup. Cloud's attacks don't work 80% of the time because of the physical resistance, and Aerith needs to save her ATB gauge for our team healing. So the strat here is to use Aerith's Tempest ability as much as humanly possible, And then when getting a limit break, instead of using the team heal limit break, we use the refocus one so that she then splits her ATB gauge into 3 sections. That way we can save a prayer use, and then you have 1 left over to be able to use her soul drain ability with, just to get in some extra damage. This fight lasted for 24 minutes, which doesn't sound like a long time. But when you are doing the same loop over and over and over and over and over and over and over in a fight, it gets to be a bit much. Hell House lived up to its name, and this section did make me want to just stop and take a break for a while, because it was not fun. This was not a fun section. Don't do this. I'm warning you. So with Hell House out of the way, we then beat the gym challenges, fought some bombs in the arena, and then we saw Aerith's new dress. Look how pretty. Tell her she's pretty. And finally, it was time for what everyone else always remembers. The Honeybee Inn. We then break into the mansion in disguise and find Tifa, only to then get fondled by the Dawn, and then also get thrown into the sewers as we confront him. Yay. All of this bringing us to the Abzu fight. And in this fight, this is where I started to realize just how to use Tifa to the best effect. So most of the fight we run through as Tifa, focused on breaking the horn first. Aerith is on prayer duty, Cloud is on damage and pressure detail, and after a bit, Tifa lands the final blow, moving us into the sewers. Alright, getting on into Chapter 10 here, I discovered something while down in the sewers. If you break these boxes, there's a chance that a high potion will drop. And then if you save and reload, the boxes will respawn and maintain the same chance to drop the item. Now, from what I found, this is not an indefinite thing, but you can use this to stack some free high potions for a bit. We then move on and deal with the thick-shelled froggy boys in the sewers, and then proceed into the most unnecessary part of the game, the extended train graveyard. Now, I'm not against expanding on things, but this area did not need 2 boss fights and a navigation puzzle. So, we get to the cool fight, and, that's pretty standard at this point. We use Aerith and Tifa mostly because there will be points where physical attacks just don't work on this guy. And then we finally get to the big boss, Eligor. In this fight, I actually do like. I also just think it's cool that there is like a Midgar cryptid and an urban legend that this section kind of tells about. This section just drags on a bit too long for my full liking. So, Eligor has a few phases, but there really is just one big secret to this fight. Make Tifa smack his ass raw. No, seriously, just make her roll around behind him and then go to town until Stagger is built, and then unleash Bravers and full combo Tifa chains on him until he pops.
Come on, can you land?
That is actually what you do, because his attacks don't really hit behind him.
Oh, okay, that was not what I wanted.
And once Eligor is dealt with, we prepare for the climb of the Sector 7 plate support pillar. And moving into Chapter 12, this section starts off with another visit from the Careless Whisper Boys, and the fight is nothing different, so we'll just go ahead and handle it the same way we did before. Then, afterwards, the party splits up, and Cloud starts to climb by himself, and we need to change our strategy up a little bit here. See, up until this point, we have primarily been using Cloud as a counter-hit specialist, and then throwing Bravers out on staggered opponents for big damage. But one thing Cloud really doesn't do well with is flying enemies. So, here in this section with all of the drones and the helicopter ninjas, we resort to having Cloud throw out Fyra as much as he can to help even things out. We then get shot at by Reno and Root in the helicopter, and then we switch back over to Aerith, who goes on to save a small child and then subsequently go back in to save another small child. After the second small child rescuing, we get intercepted by Sung, and, well, then we get kidnapped. So there's that. End of a very short segment here. Meanwhile, back at the plate, Tifa joins up with Cloud, and the two make the final ascent to the top of the pillar, finding Jessie in some rough shape on the way, and then we hit the top to meet up with Barret. And with the gang back together again, we finally start the next boss fight against Reno on the roof, and he is not holding back this time. So he uses all of the same moves as before, but is now a lot more aggressive in his attacks that hit multiple party members now. So, in a rip-off of Liam O'Brien, we stagger, and Reno decides to put Cloud in a pyramid hold until the other two break him out. Moving into Phase 2. Rude then joins in on the fun after Barret shoots down the helicopter he's flying, and now all of the problems are ours to deal with. See, remember back when I said our armor will stay low this entire run? Well, we really start to feel that pain in this fight with the Turks. So I decided to focus on Reno first because he is much faster than Rude, and I also figured out that limit breaks don't just immediately close the distance to an enemy, as I whiffed on Tifa's somersault. Not once, but twice. And once Reno finally goes down, the cleanup on Rude actually goes pretty quickly as the party overwhelms him, and we watch the detonation of the plate, all while we swing our way to safety. Relatively. Chapter 13 then starts, and on our way to Aerith's house, we see Sephi again. Barret then bursts in to find Marlene, and, well, after all that's said and done, we head back to Sector 7 and fall into a Shinra research lab. Where, as Barret, we run around the lab and trying to find the other two members. Along the way, I discover you can shoot all of the hundreds of boxes that line the walls to try and get some item drops and spend a bit of time clearing the place out. We then meet up with Tifa before finding Wedge unconscious and dragging him to safety before we get jumped by the Mako freaks that have broken out of the containment in the lab. And these guys are a bit tough. Not because they have lots of HP, but more so that they just keep respawning. However, before too long, we split the party just as a huge one shows up and a mini-boss fight starts, with Tifa up on the rafters and Barret down on the ground. So, this here is one of those puzzle fights we were talking about, where you need to do enough damage with Barret on the monster's appendage to stun it and open it up for Tifa's physical attacks. This rotation takes a bit of time as the smaller enemies keep spawning in, but we eventually beat it, and Cloud makes his dynamic entrance to kill steal, get 1 point up on Tifa and Barret, I suppose. After all of this is said and done, the party then drags Wedge back to Elmira in Sector 5's slums. Where, after dropping off Wedge, we head back out to the garden to have a date night with Barret that will have to continue at the Gold Saucer, unfortunately. You know, if they kept that gimmick in the game. I haven't exactly played Rebirth at all. I just always thought it was really funny that Barret was included in the date mechanics as the neutral option in OG7. We then head back to the Don's mansion and find Leslie sneaking around. Leslie offers to help us in our plight of getting up to Shinra HQ, but only if we help him get revenge on the Don. And so we head back down into the sewers. While down there, an Abzu Shote steals our key, and we need to chase it all the way through the sewers until we beat it into submission and go to confront the Don. The Don, however, gets the split on us again, and we start yet another Abzu fight. This time, also filled with the Shotes, to just make things even more fun. Okay, we're going to gloss over this one because it is practically identical to the previous Abzu fight, except now we have Barret healing us instead of Aerith. So, sue me, we're moving on. The Don then gets away, and Leslie gives the gang some grapple guns, which leads to our ascent of the ruined Sector 7 plate. And also Chapter 15.
Biobapolis! Get your Biobapolis here!
Up on the ruins of the plate, we then deal with some mobs while trying to navigate our way to Shinra HQ. Of note, we start running into soldier third-class operators and their mechs, which does slow down our progression a bit as they are tanky little guys. We make it to the final area and we are set upon by the Mark 99 artillery copter, which is a, as you guessed it by the name copter, flying boss. So, once again, we switch to Barret and blast away at the boss until it staggers, and then switch Tifa and Cloud in to deal some heavy damage when it's on the ground. Finally, we end our ascent by fishing Barret out of the sky, and we proceed on towards Shinra HQ. Starting off Chapter 16, some of the longest chapters in the game are these last couple, we make it to Shinra Tower and deal with the patrol guards and their puppy dogs real quick, before deciding to sneak into the top floors via the long stairway climb.
Small blessing.
And hey, if you were enjoying this video and want to stick around for more challenge runs, speed runs, or whatever else I get up to over here, feel free to hit the subscribe button and leave a comment telling me what you thought about this run down below. So, after Barret finally makes his way up the stairs, we watch as Scarlet doms her soldiers, and get treated to a vision of Meteor for a few moments before seeing Hojo creepily talk about Aerith. We then fight through a VR simulation to gain the trust of a contact within Shinra before restocking on our items and eavesdrop in on a board meeting, where Palmer freaks out about seeing Sephiroth, Hojo makes very ethically questionable research requests, and we follow him down to his lab where he releases an experiment on the party, and he starts to get away. Onwards to the experiment boss. So, the biggest thing with this boss fight is that it will poison the party, so use antidotes and stay on top of healing. I also just used Cloud to go around and deal with the mini parasites that spawn in while using Tifa to deal stagger damage on the main boss. I really don't know how many different ways I could describe the same process, but here we are. We saved Cloud's braver strikes for when Tifa was building higher stagger, leading to some massive damage bursts on the boss, and we put it away pretty quickly once full focus was put on it. From there, we dealt with the Shinra troops that storm in, we meet ourselves the best boy Red, stumble our way down a long corridor in order to see some alien boobas, have a flashback with Cloud about Tifa, and confront Sephiroth's visage in the bowels of Hojo's laboratory, leading to the party getting split up yet again. This time, however, the boys get separated from the girls, and each team then deals with their own sets of encounters while opening doors and walkways for the other team. Oh, and Red will jump between both parties at this point, but we can't control him, which is a crime against the players, Square. This all leads into a split boss fight with the Swordipede, where first Cloud and Barret will fight it, and then it will cut through a wall and Tifa and Aerith will fight it back out in the central platform. I'm not going to show this one a whole lot. Mainly, just hit the head because that's the only place on the boss that will take damage. Other than that, good luck not getting hit in the confined spaces that these fights take place in. Tifa once again clears the boss with her limit break just before it probably would have party wiped me though, so that was pretty cool. And once Red rides the fish, we get to see Barret dangle Donald Shinra off the tower before getting pegged by Sephiroth, and we immediately are thrown into the Genova Dreamweaver boss fight.
Barret!
Oh boy, a Genova boss fight. Yay, everybody loves these. This fight is long and annoying due to the boss having a massive health pool and needing to deal with its tentacles separately so to limit the boss's attacks. So a lot of the first phase is spent as Cloud and Tifa dealing with the tentacles and Aerith healing. Again, nothing new, getting in hits on the main body when it is the only part remaining. Phase 2, however, gets a little more interesting. We mainly switch to Aerith for this phase and keep on the move as Genova will teleport around the arena and also call down some acid rain goo that will deal a lot of chip damage to anyone standing in the area. Other than that, we avoid the portals Genova lays down to trap party members, and we keep blasting away at the beast, ultimately using Tifa to deal the last bit of damage, as is business as usual. The boss goes down, we restock on items, and then Nepotism's final boss arrives on the scene, and we have one of the funniest boss fights due to how simple it is.
Don't say that.
Contrary to what I just said, the Rufus fight is difficult. If you try to fight him normally with the same strats we've been repeating up to this point. But the main staple here is, first we need to deal with Darkstar and then turn our attention on the big boy himself. See, up until now we have mainly been using Cloud for counter hits. Well, Rufus decided that that was going to be his specialty and do it way better than Cloud could ever dream of. So that takes that out of the running and we only have one spell to use against him and not a lot of MP. But If you played OG7, you will know that Rufus Shinra has a big weakness. Namely, poison.
But Benny, how are you going to poison him if you can't use the Materia?
I hear you ask. And I have the answer for you. See, while running around and even during the experiment fight, we picked up a handful of hazardous material. And we can throw that at Rufus to poison him. And that's what we do. Poison and run, baby! We are here to cheese this one out, and after running in circles for quite a while on the helipad, we get off a nice little cross slash after waiting for the plague to take its toll, and Rufus finally goes down. And we move on to the next pain in the dick. The Arsenal fight.
Alright, Rufus done. Jesus Christ.
Oh boy, having no shortage of annoying as hell boss fights in the end-game boss rush that this is, the Arsenal takes the cake for being the worst in the game in terms of time wasting. Even more so than Hell House. See, the Arsenal has a massive HP pool, will always turn to keep you from hitting its weak point, and has drones that it uses to repair itself. So, the strategy here is to use Barret and Aerith on opposite sides of the room to draw its attention and then switch to the other one to deal some modicum of damage to it, and then repeat. This goes on for a while. Especially as we use the arena debris as some cover, and eventually, after chipping away at it for so long, it finally dies. This fight is boring, this fight is not noteworthy, it is just long. Especially since if you take it in terms of difficulty, this one really isn't hard, especially just at this point because both Aerith and Barret can heal, and Barret can also cast regen on the party now, so again, while this one is tedious, it isn't difficult.
Holy shit.
The party reconvenes, and then we drive our way out of Shinra Tower, and the highway chase begins. So again, just like before, we're not going to focus on the small fries. But we're going to skip to the end of the highway chase, because that's when we get attacked by the roller ball? I think that's its name. Anyways, this one's a pretty easy boss fight. Just destroy its wheels and then basic attack it to build up stagger and deal increased damage. Rinse and repeat this process 3 to 4 times, and then the roller ball will go down. Just don't let it hit you with its mines that it will throw down. Finally, letting us get to the end of the Midgar section. And wait, no, nope, not the end. We have another boss rush to slog through. We have a confrontation with Sephiroth, we get a scene showing Zack's last stand. Then the team walks through a portal and we begin the final gauntlet. First on the list, dealing with the Whisper Harbinger, which is a multi-phase, multi-boss fight sequence that if you die at any point of, you get sent right back here to the start of it. Ask me how I know. So, we start the Vestiges fight and we hit the transition into the solo Ruby match, which goes okay. Counter hits, Tifa staggers, the usual, now the goal here is not to kill them at this point. The goal is to stagger break them and then deal tons of damage to burst through the Harbinger's HP bar. We need to do this multiple times, so we need to save our heavy hits for the breaks. Repeat this process 2 more times, and then the trio fuse and become the Red Eyes Goo Bahamut. But make no mistake, this is the most dangerous fight in the gauntlet. And we find that out pretty quick, as Bahamut uses its flare to decimate us and we can't recover quick enough, leading to a game over and restarting back at Fight 1. Skipping back ahead to the next round with Bahamut, this time with some limit breaks, playing safer, and Cloud throwing out some heavy Braver actions, we beat the fusion monster and move on to finishing the Whispers to danger. Now this is the same fight as before, except now once we break them and hit the Harbinger, we remove them one at a time, starting with Ruby, then onto Viridi, and finally, the yellow one. I don't know its name. Kadaj, Laz, and Yazoo for all I care. This prompting the arrival of the big guy, Sephiroth. And Phase 1 starts with a 1v1 with Cloud, naturally. Again, similar to Reno, this phase is just a lot of fun when you really get fluent with the mechanics of parrying and punishing, and all of the phases of Sephiroth are just visual spectacle for you to enjoy. Just don't get careless. He will kill you quickly. Phase 2, and Tifa joins in, and the fight doubles in ferocity, with Sephiroth throwing out some major AoE damage now, casting Hold a Person like a D&D wizard, and generally becoming more aggressive until Tifa beats the piss out of him and throws him into Phase 3. Phase 3, and Aerith joins in, but now Seph Dog is throwing out some heavy combos rated E for everyone and still using all of the magics from earlier, plus more! This time also infusing his basic attacks with magic elements to add on to the damage. Now, about halfway through this fight, I paused for just a second after he cast a spell, and, well, I wound up with an extremely cursed image, but I had to stop and admire it, so now you do too. And after a bit more punishment, we enter the final phase. The one-winged angel has arrived, and it actually goes by pretty quick since he was already low on HP, and, well, that's it. We did it. You can, in fact, beat Final Fantasy VII Remake with only the gear you start with. Items not included. This was a lot of fun, outside of the few tedious parts to work through. And it was a fun callback to the first video that I made on this channel, so as we let the ending cutscenes play out here, I just want to say thank you for watching. I've fallen in love with making these kinds of videos, but have really struggled a bit to work on as many as I have wanted to recently. But I do appreciate everyone who gets on here and watches the things that I make, or pops into streams sometimes to say hello and chat for a minute. I have more videos coming down the pipeline, but in the meantime, I am also in the middle of a 100-day streaming challenge, and we are approaching day 30 of that, where we are doing a lot of challenge runs, speed runs, and first playthroughs every day. Starting around 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we just started going through Metal Gear Solid 2 yesterday. So we'll see what happens with that one. But feel free to pop in and say hello, or consider joining the Discord, as we have a small community and it is growing, and we can do a lot of cool things with that as more people come in. It's also where you can be sure to get all of the notifications for this channel as soon as they are ready to come out. With all of that out of the way, remember to take care of yourselves, and I'll see you all again soon.